Welcome to episode 3 of Shooting Storrs. As always, I'm your host Connor with Andrew and Matt, and our third guest, the one and only Sterling Gibbs. Sterling, how you doing this afternoon?
Oh, good, man. Doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Appreciate you coming on. I know you're a very busy man. Now we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. Let's just start right there. Actually, we obviously, if the viewers don't know, you're now the head coach of your former high school, Seton Hall Prep. What's that been like? I know you just got named it. You haven't coached a game yet. It's for this upcoming season. But what is that whole experience like for you? Obviously, going back home and coaching your former school.
It's been great. It's been great. Especially the fact that I'm able to be back at my old school, my alma mater. I think the timing for this was perfect for me. It was. I have two little kids. I have my wife at home, so being overseas is just a tough. It's a tough thing. For me, it wasn't necessarily like playing wise. I was playing well, doing well. Um, but like when you're raising your kids over FaceTime, it starts to take a toll on you a little bit. So it made a decision that I kind of took a leap of faith when I came back home. It wasn't necessarily I didn't know that this would happen, but the fact that it's happened has been amazing for me and amazing for my family.
And you played basketball for a long time, obviously. Now you're the coach. What has that transition been like from player to coach? And have you maybe learned anything that, maybe as a player you would get angry at that now you're like, oh, I understand.
Patience. Like being real patient and like teaching. It's been a lot of teaching. I think sometimes I may have taken it for granted. Different things that I'm able to read as a player. My guys might need to be taught. Because it's been instilled in my head for so long. So, now it's like I have to kind of break down every little thing. But for me, it's been great to the fact that I had a lot of great coaches. I was kind of a journeyman in college, so three different colleges. It kind of worked to my benefit. And two, when I tore my ACL while I was playing overseas, I actually was the assistant coach here while I was rehabbing. So it helped me a lot, being able to be on the bench, being able to, kind of see the ins and outs of it at that point. Sorry, the school bell. But like it allowed me to see, a lot of the ins and outs of it. So kind of seeing like what I like, what I don't like, what I want to, how want to run offense, defense, that type of stuff, how to relate to the kids, all that, stuff. So I think it gave me a little intro into it, being an assistant first during that, period when I was rehabbing. So that helped me a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned you came back from overseas. You didn't expect to get this job, or you didn't know you were getting it. Is being an assistant kind of what led into that, or is that just something that popped up? How did that opportunity come up for you?
Um, yeah, I think being an assistant, I think it helped. I've been around the program for a long time. Since I left, I constantly come back, constantly interact with the guys. Also I was running camps, doing things that, so it was consistently being around, but also I think, I believe the people that, made that decision, they saw something in me that, you know, that they wanted me to be in this position, and I'm grateful for it. I'm, thankful that they saw that, we kind of we've taken it in stride and put, great people around me. And, my circle is always really small. Is real small circle is really my dad, my mom, my younger brother, my wife, and then I have a couple other friends around that we grind this thing out, and we put all the pieces together, try to get the guys going, and make it as much of a college-like atmosphere for them as far as like, their off season and their daily routines, to kind of get them acclimated to what, say, college would be like, if you want to say.
And now, obviously, that you're a coach, you played a couple years ago in college. This is a completely different game now. We just want to get your thoughts on the whole NIL thing after playing really without it for your whole career, and now seeing that some of your players could get NIL while they're still playing in high school. We just want to get kind of your perspective on it as a former player and current coach of a prep team.
I personally think it's great. I think it's great that the guys are getting paid and they're able to take care of their families, take care of themselves. They're bringing in a lot of revenue. For a long time, for forever, they've been bringing in so much revenue. I think it's about time that they've seen some. Now, of course, the ins and outs of it and being able to get it kind of organized, I guess, in a way. I think that's probably more of the question, like when that's going to happen. But, the fact that the players are getting paid, I think it's great. I think, they need to benefit off of it, and then also, they're able to take care of their families. They're doing such a great job. They've accomplished a lot just by being on the court, in general, in these big universities. So, they should get paid for it and be able to, set up a life for themselves and families.
And when you were in college, do you remember this being any sort of an issue for you or any teammates that you've had where, maybe you'd be frustrated about the lack of being paid or, even just talk to them about, hopefully one day this happening?
Definitely, lack of money, like as far as like lack of being paid or lack of money, that's always there. That was always there. Because of course, like you're dedicating your life to to the school, to basketball. So, your classes are built around basketball. Every day is built around basketball. So there's no way to really like, of course you're not there to work. So there's no way to work. So of course, you if you score 30 points in front of 10,000 fans and then you go back and eat in the cafeteria, it's kind of like it kind of wears on you a little bit because of course like you have to have something, right? Like so you're not going to just eat cafeteria food. You have to have a car. So like how can you be the star player and ride around a hoopty? Like it's I think it's always been there, but from a player standpoint, personally, I never thought that it would necessarily change. So like it's kind of like that's the reality of it. You kind of deal with the reality of it and keep it moving. Now that it's changed, I think we can look back and say, oh, this is years in the this should have been years ago, whatever. But for myself and I'm sure many others, like no one really necessarily saw it coming to this, like where guys would be really getting paid and not just getting paid, but getting paid a lot of money to be college athletes.
And in regards to the transfer portal, obviously you're someone who can speak on this as good as anyone. You transferred twice in your career, but now, what, 6, 7, 8, however many years later, it's completely different. And you see players transferring left and right, like 3 schools in 3 years, 4 schools in 4 years, tongue twister there. Is that something that you think is good for the game, especially if you're a high school coach, you're sending these kids off to college, and you usually expect them to commit to the school, play for the school. It's not usually the norm, I feel like, to go to all these different every other year to a different school. What's like your message, I guess, to kids going through the recruiting process, and like what's your overall opinion on the current state of the transfer portal?
First, I think it's situational because like certain kids are like transferring, for certain situations that make sense. But at the same time, it's also gotten out of hand, like where the smallest detail is making somebody transfer, you know, and I think it makes it really tough for the guys that actually are transferring for a good reason. And you know, the one thing that I would say is that the grass isn't always greener, you know, like because like say for, you know, in my case, like transferring from Seton Hall to UConn. UConn was great, you know, like even the, you know, the atmosphere, so on and so forth, everything. But it was a tough adjustment. You know, it wasn't what I necessarily like, you know, you envision something in your mind of like, it's gonna go this way, it should go this way because we have this piece, this piece, this piece. But it takes time. You know, it's not just something that you jump right into when you are, you know, the system, you know, or you're acclimating to a whole different routine, daily routine that, you know, that you had at that other school. You're acclimating to a whole different coach, different players, different attitudes, mindsets. You know, everything's different. Where, you know, that school that kind of like gave you that opportunity, like say for instance, Seton Hall, you know, allowed me to be myself and you know, acclimate to college basketball, where I got the opportunity from UConn to go there, you know, because of how I played at Seton Hall. But you know, the one thing I didn't take into account, it took really about 2-3 years for me to get completely acclimated at Seton Hall. You know, so then now you jump into UConn and only have 1 year. You know, granted, we made the most of it. I think we did some great things. You know, we had a good team and all that stuff, but you know, it's not, the grass isn't greener and it's a tougher adjustment than, you know, it may look like on paper or like what, you know, maybe even someone is gonna, you know, necessarily sell you on.
And speaking of the acclimating and like atmosphere stuff, we've got a couple games written down here. I know Connor's going to ask you about one that went into double overtime and had a certain shot in it, but I want to ask you about the night of December 29th of 2015, which was your first time back in Austin after playing there for your freshman year. And I just want to know what was going, like, was the preparation for that game different than any other one you had played? And I know you had some huge free throws at the end to help us win that game. But was your preparation going into that game any different, knowing that you had played there, or was it just kind of the same as every other game?
I think it was similar. It was pretty much the same. You know, like it was. You know, I had nerves because I have my Texas family out there that, you know, took me in during my time at Texas. So playing in front of them, you know, was kind of, you know, a little nerve wracking. But being back in Austin, being back in Texas, being back on the campus, you know, it was really like refreshing. You know, because I think for me during that time, during that freshman year, like I envisioned myself as something, say, bigger than, you know, what I was at that moment, you know, because like I wasn't playing much. So like, you know, I wasn't getting a whole lot of time. I would work out after some of the games. You know, you go in practice, playing, working hard, so on and so forth. But, you know, you're also watching the other guys play. And, you know, it motivates you, but also in a way wears on you because, like, you know, you try to think positively, but, you know, the way my college career panned out, like, I couldn't have scripted it really better, you know, because it's like you don't play, then you're in the situation where you are playing and, you know, you're able to get adjusted, and then you go to a school like UConn and then you're back where you started. You know, you kind of for me, I really took that moment in. And I remember, you know, knocking down those free throws, being there, being in the arena, and just kind of like, you know, really taking it in to the point that like after the game, I walked. They have not 6th Street, but it's a strip on campus. Walking down the strip at night, and it was just, I was just by myself, put on some music, just walking down, just kind of like remembering my freshman year. And I think, I was a little more mature at that moment, to kind of see how far I had come at that point. It really, it allowed me to take that time in, because during that time at UConn, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress a little bit. So, to kind of remember where I was in that moment, in my freshman year, to where I was senior year, it made me feel a lot more appreciative of, of the journey, per se.
Yeah, it's certainly a full circle moment. But the other game Andrew mentioned there, you kind of cut it short. He said double overtime. We got 4 overtimes in that game. I know you know the game I'm talking about, that AAC tournament game at Cincinnati. What's it like playing in a game like that? I guess first, obviously you played 54 minutes, which college games are 40. You played almost an extra half of basketball, but also just when Cincinnati hits that 3 under a second left and you have the sense of defeat, and then Jalen hits that shot. I mean, what's that range of emotions like? It's not something you go through every day, I'm sure.
No, that's not gonna lie to you, that was I remember him hitting that 3, because I went out and I contested it, and I'm like, no, that's not going in, and of course made it. And I remember I think Daniel and Jalen were fighting for the ball, and I'm like, oh God, this is. I'm kind of walking up the court, all right, look, and I think at that moment, right before that, Seton Hall had they had just won to go get to the championship, I believe, championship at Madison Square Garden, the Big East tournament. And I'm like, they're going to the championship and we here about to lose this game. And I transferred here to win games like this, and it's you kind of walking up, you going through that emotion, and Jalen shoots it, and you kind of all right, whatever. And then it goes in, and then next thing you know, everybody's running. But for me, you start running and celebrating, but it's one of those things that you're like, this is too good to be true. At some point, they're going to call it and say, it left his hands too late, or blah, 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 but then, once we got back to the huddle, I remember guys in the huddle yelling, we can't lose this now. And then, after that shot, I knew we were going to win the game. Everybody knew we were going to win the game, because, that was just it. It was too much momentum at that point. And Cincinnati had beat us, I believe, twice that season, that year. So it was just about time that it was the perfect timing for it. But yeah, that was every emotion possible.
Obviously, you go on to win that game, you win that tournament, and then you go on to play in March Madness. What was that whole experience like? Obviously, the win against Colorado, and then coming up against 1 seed Kansas, and you led the team in scoring. That was the Sterling Gibbs game. So just tell us a little bit about that.
It was good, as far as that Kansas game, I remember it was, I believe, Des Moines, Iowa. And I remember the game before. So when we played Colorado, Kansas had played, I believe they had played after us. And I remember seeing how packed it was. I'm like, this is just filled with Kansas fans, all Kansas fans. It's like a home game for them. And we have our section of UConn fans or whatever, but the whole thing is packed to the top with Kansas fans. And so we beat Colorado, which was a tough game. We pulled away towards the end, go against Kansas, and they were just good. They were good. That was a good team, well coached. They had a lot of guys. Frank Mason, Devontae Graham, Perry Ellis was in his like 10th year. I forgot the big man that they had. It was, they were good. And then also, they had all the fans, all the crowd. So everybody was there, everybody, um, you know, cheering them on. And it was a great atmosphere in that. But, I remember once we lost, that was a tough, kind of settling in, like, this is it. But, that was definitely a memorable game because of just the atmosphere in general, the Kansas, and our fans as well. We had a good support, when we went on our run as well.
Now, obviously, your 1 year at UConn was memorable, but have you been paying attention to obviously we're back-to-back champions, but have you been keeping up with the team? Like, you had a chance to talk to Danny Hurley or go to practice or anything like that since you left? I know you've been overseas for quite some time, but have you had a chance to go to practice or talk to Coach Hurley?
I haven't really talked to him too much. I believe last year we exchanged texts a couple times. I talked to Kamani, a couple weeks ago. He was big in this whole, say, change into coaching. Because Kamani was my coach when I was really young. So like, seeing him, doing well, seeing Danny do well, seeing all the coaching staff and everybody, the way that they are able to put all that together, and of course, back-to-back national champions has been nothing short of great. But no, I haven't really talked to them much. I'm sure those guys are busy, but of course, I definitely admire everything that they do from afar for sure.
And we've talked a lot about your past, obviously. I want to get back into your current job coaching. Do you have any, far future plans? Do you want to stay at Seton Hall Prep for, as long as you can and see where it takes you? Or do you have an end goal? Do you have an end game?
So I am where my feet are. So like, of course, like, I'm here. I'm all in on Seton Hall Prep basketball. Building this thing up to where, as big as we can. Making sure that the guys are as prepared as possible, giving them all the knowledge that I could possibly give, and then also giving them all the tools possible to be successful. So, I'm putting everything into this. This is something that my dad went here, my two brothers went here, so we're all heavily invested in this. Now I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want to put everything into the guys, and to have a successful season, and then you just take it season by season and see what happens.
No, I got one last question for you, and it's not as serious as the other ones. I've asked this question. We've had a bunch of guests on here. I want to know who the funniest teammate you ever played with was, because there's plenty of options on that 2015-16 team. I know there is. So who was the funniest teammate you ever played with?
Funniest teammate from 2015, I would say maybe Jalen. Jalen Adams at that point. Like, Jalen was a freshman, so like a lot of the stuff that he was doing like was funny because it was just so immature. But I think we all were immature at that moment. So at that point, so like, I would probably say, actually no, maybe Amita Brahma as well. Mita, maybe Jalen, Mita. They both had their funny ways. Amita was a character in himself.
I can definitely see that.
I feel like the fact that he was 7 foot tall made most of
And rode a moped.
Yeah.
That was so. It was. I really enjoyed those guys. Being around them. On the day to day. They made it very very light. And we were always in the gym, so it we had to make make it as fun as possible.
Yeah, if you have multiple answers, you can't choose. It's definitely a fun locker room in there. But I got one last question, not less of a question, more of a trivia for you about your career. We've been doing these recently as well. Do you remember? I assume you do, but we'll try it. Your career high in college, and who it was against, not just at UConn, in all college.
40 points versus Illinois State.
On top of it, that's correct. Do you know your UConn career high and who it was against? I have it written down here.
26 Memphis.
Nailed it. That's impressive. I expected you to know the 40. I feel like you don't forget if you drop 40.
The 40 was that was not Bahamas, but Virgin Islands. Virgin Islands, Illinois State championship game. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember, telling my point guard, because I was playing like a little bit too. During warm-ups, I'm like, I'm feeling good, and the brims were feeling good. I hit a couple threes early in the game. Once you get going, that one is very memorable for me, for sure.
All right. You guys got anything else, Andrew or Matt? So I think that'll just about do it here. Sterling, we appreciate the time. I know you're very busy. You're at the school right now, very busy man with basketball season coming up. We appreciate you taking a little bit of time here to talk with us.
Anytime, man. Look, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was great. Definitely.
Yeah. And for the listeners, we're going to try to do these guests more often. It won't always be Sterling. Maybe he'll be back at some point down the line, but just stay tuned for our next episode. And yeah, thanks for watching.